Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital. It's Thursday, the 17th of March, 2022. I'm Zainab Bala.
And I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Good morning and welcome once again. Now today on Daybreak, that's on the show, we'll be talking about Nigerian inflation as it increases to 15.70%, and even Nigerians as they groan, while power supply gets worse.
As usual, we'll be giving you the top headlines of our dailies here this morning. But before that, let's take a look at the news highlights. Police in Borno have arrested 5 suspects, including 2 soldiers, for alleged armed robbery and culpable homicide. Commissioner of Police in the state, Abdul Umar, on Wednesday in Maiduguri, said the suspects robbed a point-of-sale agent, Yusuf Osman. Umar said during the robbery, which took place on February 6th at GSM Market, Bulumkutu, the gang shot and killed a man while another sustained injury. He said operatives of the command initially arrested 3 of the suspects, Mustafa Lawal, alias Bakura Dantawai, Abubakar Mohammed, alias Broshagi, and Umar Ibrahim, who confessed to the crime, and named 2 other members of the gang who were soldiers, Michael and Jibril Adamu.
All right, moving on. Local and state government workers in Niger State have commenced indefinite strike over non-implementation of full payment of salaries paid to workers in the state. The Nigerian Labour Congress, in a statement by its chairman, Yakubu Garba, on Wednesday, said the action is informed by a breach in the ongoing negotiations between government and Labour by a local government council. The statement expressed displeasure over alleged plans by some local government chairmen to play a fast one on the union, and insisted that the strike will remain in force until salaries of workers in 25 local government areas are paid in 100% gross component. Niger State workers began a 7-day warning strike on March 8th, which extended by additional 14 days to allow for negotiations.
And on the foreign scene, Islamic State of West Africa province ISWAP insurgents have abducted a health worker with the General Hospital Gubio Bulama Gaidam and looted food items and fuel from a humanitarian truck on Wednesday. The State Commissioner for Health, Juliana Bitrus, who confirmed the incident in Maiduguri, described the situation as unfortunate and distorting. She said the abducted health worker is among those who remained at their duty post in spite of the challenges of insecurity in the area.
All right, with that, we'll take a look at what happened today, in history. Tuesday.
Very interesting. A number of events, that happened on this day. Talking about in 1894, U.S. and China signed a treaty preventing Chinese laborers from entering the U.S.
I remember, it was a really, really crazy one, back then. They didn't trust each other at all. And, what they called the Chinese people, Chinks. Yes, they hated them. It was racism at its highest back then, and it's sad to note that it hasn't ended. It started with the Asians, and then blacks, and then Indians.
I really used to think it was just a black thing. They used to call Negroes and all that, but it's really tragic that it happens with Asians as well.
All right, in 1921, Dr. Marie Stopes opens Britain's first birth control clinic in London. And we also have in 1992, Islamic Jihad car bombing of Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires, Argentina kills 29. And 2001, OPEC decides to cut output by 4% or 1 million barrels per day effective April 1. And we also have in 1895, 200 African Americans leave Savannah, Georgia for Liberia. And this is actually to say that they went back home, right?
Home is home.
Yeah. And these are the events that happened today in history. Well, that will take a quick breather. And when we come back, it'll be time for the newspaper review. Do stay.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, welcome back. As you've heard, it is actually time for newspaper review right here in the studio. And with us, we have General Editor, Daily Trust, Hamza Idris, joining us, as the reviewer. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak again.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll start first of all by taking headlines from the Daily Trust newspaper for Thursday, March 17th, 2022. And we have the lead story here that talks about businesses struggling for survival as diesel price soars. And we have writers that say cost of production unbearable, says manufacturers. Supply will adjust in few weeks, says oil marketers. Job losses loom. And we have a pictorial of people packing rubbles after demolition in Utako village by the Development Control Department of Abuja Municipal Council. All right, beside that pictorial, we have 2023 PDP begins sale of forms as meetings on zoning deadlocked. We have how Lagos bishop drugged, defiled daughter. This is a really sad one. Details of that on page 16. We also have on the Electoral Act, we may go to court, says federal government. And then right below that, we have APC Council's NEC meeting as Buhari backs Buni committee. And right that says Yobe governor meets president in London. Details on page 8. If you go to the top of the page, you'd find 2023 presidency. APC reps endorse Tinubu, senators wish him well. We also have fuel crisis. Buhari apologizes to Nigerians, orders clamp down on saboteurs. And these are some of the stories you can find on Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Punch this morning. El-Rufai, other APC governors lose out. Buni meets Buhari, returns today. And the writers there say APC chair parleys president in UK, returns from Dubai trip, cancels NEC meeting. Party may die if crisis continues, Buhari warns. Directs DSS police to provide cover. And you find other stories right at the top on page 25. Banks' total assets rose by 8.25 trillion naira in 2021, and this is according to a CBN report. Blackout. Federal government blames gas shortage, vandalism. OK's 40 billion naira for discos. And on page 27 on the Punch, National Assembly proposing criminalizing illegal connection meter bypass, and this is according to the NERC. Electoral Act, federal government exploring court talks on amendment, says AGF. And then you find other stories on the Punch this morning. Tinubu berates presidential aspirants over defections, sells bid at National Assembly. Ondo shoemaker claiming self-defense stabs landlord's son to death. You find details of that story on page 5 on the Punch. And then on page 8, you see the story about Yoruba Nation, Akintoye, others ask courts to stop Ekiti ocean polls. These are some of the major stories in the Punch.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Guardian newspaper. We have on APC crisis, which is the lead story. Buhari takes charge, pushes back governors. Writers here say affirms Yobe governor as CEC-PC chair. March 26 convention. Buni meets president in London, set to return.
Party cancels today's NEC meeting as Yari Akume others pick chairmanship forms. At the top there, we have a story that says Abba Kyari's extradition process on, says Malami, and details of that on page 5. And on page 2, we have more problems for Nigerians here, talking about NERC to review electricity tariff every 6 months over forex and inflation. And right beside the pictorial, you'd find, despite backstabbing, God will see me through, says Tinubu. We also have FG considers refusal of Buhari's Electoral Act amendment by Senate. Former Senate leader faults APC zoning arrangement, and PDP raises 37-man panel on zoning. And right below that, that's on the footnotes there, you have NJC issues warning to 2 judges, places others on watch list. And these are some of the stories from the Guardian newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some more on the Nation newspaper this morning. Buhari to APC governors. Buni remains party chair. You see the riders there saying President insists on March 26th convention date. Yobe governor back cancels NEC meeting. And you'd find other stories right at the top on page 5. PDP NEC fails to OK zoning. Pay 40 million naira for form. You'd also see the story about Yoruba Nation agitators file suits to stop Ekiti Osun polls. Malami, we are seeking options on Electoral Act. You'd also find other stories about federal government to stop payment for unused electricity. Senators, reps pledge support for Tinubu. These are some of the major highlights of the Nation.
All right, with that, we'll move on to a Nigerian Tribune newspaper. And the lead here talks about APC crisis. Buhari backs Buni, warns governors, NEC meeting cancelled. Buni returns after meeting with Buhari in London, and Tinubu meets APC Senate reps caucuses over presidential election, presidential aspiration. Details on that on page 5. We also have Soludo to be inaugurated as Anambra governor today. Power crisis is like war, says federal government. NJC issues warning to 2 judges and places one on watch list over judicial misconduct. And we also have Osun Ekiti polls. Akintoye, 17 others want exercise stopped. Sue INEC, AGF, fault 1999 constitution. We also have PDP opens presidential race, fixes 40 million naira fee for forms, and sets up 37 members running committee to report back in 2 weeks. At the top there, we have FG wants TikTok to suspend accounts of Nigerians promoting fake news and rituals. And then Nance gives a federal government ASU 2 weeks to end strike, declares ASU real enemy of students, and passes vote of no confidence on Ngige and Adamu. These are some of the stories on Nigerian Tribune.
Okay, let's talk business on the Business Day newspaper. You'd find a story about petrol imports doubled to 3.96 trillion naira in 1 year. And then there's a chart there that shows you incentive for smuggling, petrol price gulf between Nigeria and other neighboring African countries. You see the story also about interest rates, MPC review unlikely on inflation, oil price. Oil marketers say airlines refuse contracts, owe millions. On page 30, commodity exchanges seen as better deal for farmers. You'd also see the story about Nigerians' misery rises as living standards fall. You'll find the details of that story on page 31 on the Business Day newspaper. And as we've told you earlier, we have the deputy editor, Daily Trust, Hamza Idris, to review the papers this morning.
Yes, welcome once again.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
All right, so let's start with the lead story on Daily Trust. Talking about, the diesel price. We've seen that queues have actually resurfaced, and, manufacturers are complaining that their businesses, it's taking a toll on their businesses, and, some jobs have actually been lost as well.
It was a deliberate story. If you look at the front pages of other newspapers, it was all about politics. The crisis in PDP, crisis in APC. and what have you. But we here are not unmindful of the plight of Nigerians. You need people to survive first before they play politics, and that was why we work very hard to speak to those that matter. And as of yesterday, very, very pathetic. The price of diesel, which is the mainstay of most industries, including SMEs, has skyrocketed. In some places, over 700 naira per liter, from around 200 naira in December. Of course, they have liberalized the diesel energy, whereby marketers get it for themselves from abroad. But you can see, because even if you have the regulation, you need to monitor the actors there. But this is not the case. And yesterday, from manufacturers, many of them said they are finding it extremely difficult to break even. And therefore, they are calling our government to intervene. Small and medium industries, many of them have folded up. Bakeries, they have shut their doors. Barbing salons, tailors, and many others, they are really, really crying. While some, insist on remaining afloat, others are actually saying they will stop production, while others, like rice millers, they are saying definitely they have to lay off some of their staff, because it is not possible for them to now produce 24 hours. So it's really a serious problem. And the actors there are blaming the Russia-Ukraine war, but I don't see that as a serious excuse. Yes, in Nigeria, we find it very difficult, very easy to blame. Yes, if our refineries are really working, I don't think if we will have cause to import the commodity, because we can just, refine it here, distribute it. We have a huge market, but we import it, sadly.
Another story closely related to this is the issue of fuel scarcity, and we're still seeing queues, within the capital city. And just yesterday, the president apologized to Nigerians ordering clampdown on saboteurs. Is this going to change anything?
It will not change anything. It will not change anything. They missed the game. This government missed the game. A wonderful opportunity, because they saw what was happening for so many years from a distance, and when they got to opportunity, which was to fix the refineries, they also went to bed with the norm, which was importation. And that importation favors just a cabal, small group of people who have money, and then they import it. Of course, they claim that it's only the NNPC that imports the product. Well, it's NNPC, but NNPC does not go to the refineries, and then the countries abroad to buy. It gives contrast to many people who are making billions of dollars in profit. So we will live with this, honestly, until we do the needful, which is fixing our refineries and then giving incentives to private individuals to establish refineries. We have the crude, but we can't refine it for over 60 years. I keep saying this whenever this issue comes up. So we will live with these fuel queues for a very long time. Of course, they attributed the beginning of the problem to the adulterated fuel that was exported, but that was just one out of so many reasons, because we don't have even the foreign exchange now to bring the product. And then secondly, we don't monitor our borders. Nigeria subsidizes all its neighbors, Benin, Ghana, in some extent, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and Central African Republic. If you go to our borders at night, you see hundreds of trucks, moving outwards to all of these countries. And they are happy because we pay the subsidies and then they take the credit, the neighboring countries. And I see no reason, because some people are saying the only way to solve the problem is to also remove subsidy so that the price will be equal. This is very wrong. This fuel, the crude belongs to Nigerians. So it is the responsibility of the government to monitor the borders. If it means recruiting, millions of guards that will take charge, and then with cameras and all that to protect the borders, so be it. But Nigerians should not be made to suffer for the shortcoming of some people. If immigration, customs, police, the military, and what have you, cannot police the border, why should Nigerians bear the burden? I am not in that school of thought, honestly. Subsidy is very good. If the refineries are what you will not even talking about subsidy. So we should do the right thing. But for now, Nigerians should be supported, honestly, because it is practically impossible for people to buy liter of diesel at 700, and then for the taxi drivers, people with small generators to buy fuel for 400. If you check our page 3, we reported, an elaborate plight of people in border communities in the same edition of our paper. Every other person is just crying, and it's not good.
Okay, now this story on The Guardian on NERC to review electricity tariff every 6 months, due to forex and inflation. That's adding more burden on Nigerians.
The laws guiding the activities of all the electricity agencies provide that there will be, increase in the price of electricity, but there were many caveats there, that there should be corresponding increase in the supply chain. But what are we seeing now? There are some localities that since the beginning of February, they have not seen light. And then just early this week, we had 2 grid collapse. So this is a very serious problem that Nigeria is facing. The same way we're having challenges in the, oil sector, you can see it is the same thing in the energy sector, and it all revolves around leadership and then commitment to serve. Yes, in some places, children born 17, 20 years, they don't even know if there is something called blackout. But here, a baby born today, maybe the first experience is for that child to, witness blackout, despite the privatization. We have a story in the paper that is in Daily Trust where Junkers are claiming around 1.3 or 1.6 trillion that they are expecting the federal government to pay them for the electricity they generated, but the distribution, aspect could not be fulfilled. But the head of NAREC told them that no, it's not possible, because even the generation is problematic, and the government will not continue to pay for services not rendered. So the issues are not really adding up. You can see despite the privatization, government pumping billions of naira into the energy sector without corresponding result. While the discourse, they feel that they just have to increase the tariff. Some of us have lost count of what it takes now to even buy unit of electricity, because the issues are just not adding up, and it's really sad.
You know, we're also seeing that the federal government might go to court following the National Assembly's refusal to amend Section 84, subsection 12 of the newly amended Electoral Act.
Yes, you know, after the president assented to the new Electoral Act, he said he wasn't comfortable with section, is it 42? 84, yeah.
84, subsection.
Yes, which talks about appointees of government should resign their positions, you know, before participating in party activities like conventions or vying for political office. Some people allege that it was actually a booby trap by the National Assembly for inserting that clause, because if you go to countries where we borrow our kind of democracy, because Nigeria's democracy is jollof rice. Yes, we claim that it's American system, but you can see some elements there from the British. You see some even from Ghana. Yes, it's a combination of many systems. But when the president took the bill to the National Assembly, when they debated it, they threw it away. And there is limited time for the government to do something. And that is why the Attorney General yesterday said they have like 2 or 3 options. One, to plead with the National Assembly to revisit that clause, and then the other one is to simply go to court. But it's really a problem, because I don't think, or I don't know if the courts will, you know, adjudicate on that within the time frame available, because the Electoral Act is clear on the time that political parties should conduct their primaries. Some smart governors, they have already directed their political appointees, such as commissioners, special advisors, special assistants, and what have you, who have interest to actually tender their resignation. And some political scientists and curious observers believe that that provision is really good for the system, because a situation whereby you have ministers who want to be president still occupying a certain seat, and at the same time, you know, moving from one post to the other, campaigning, or commissioners who want to be governors or go to the National Assembly, now combining the two, that is working in their offices to deliver services to the people, and at the same time campaigning. You know, it's a serious problem. But I don't know. Maybe it's something that there should be maybe a poll, maybe by media houses, to see if Nigerians will be happy for the appointees to sign off before they, you know, throw their hearts into the contest for elective positions.
Okay, now still talking about, you know, politics, we're seeing that, you know, on the Punch newspaper, the headline actually reads, El Rufai and other APC governors lose out, even as Buni meets Buhari, and, you know, he's to return today from London. So, you know, they're saying Buhari, that's the president, is saying that Buni remains party chair despite all the controversies surrounding.
You remember last week when Governor El Rufai, on behalf of the other side, you know, said when Buni returns, he will return as Yobe governor
And not
and not as
chairman,
yes.
chair CCPC.
Yes, there was actually that serious move to remove him because of the allegations that he and his colleagues, that is some members of the caretaker committee, were not actually amenable to the conduct of
A convention.
yes, the convention, where new leaders will emerge who will in turn conduct primaries for various offices, right from state assemblies up to the presidency. That allegation was there, and you know, so some members of the party, including some governors, felt that there was the need for them to act first so that they will take charge of the party, and they sought the consent of the president. What we gathered was that President Buhari told them to do the needful. And when somebody said do the needful, it does not mean that you should stage a coup or you should use unconventional methods to effect
Do the right thing.
changes, which we feel that was what they did. But you see, INEC played key role in resolving what will be a calamity for the country. Because in a situation whereby the ruling party is thrown into chaos, an irredeemable chaos, what does that mean? It's going to be a serious problem. Of course, opposition parties should work hard to dislodge ruling parties. But in a situation whereby you have a scenario at the national level akin to what happened in Zamfara, what does that mean? You remember what happened in Zamfara? Yes, when the court said that all the people elected under the platform of APC have lost their seats because there were some infractions at the beginning of the primaries and all that. And the APC at the national level was heading towards that direction. So I think the APC should thank INEC for saving them by really reading the books for them that, look, for you to effect change, you need to inform us 21 days ahead and all that. So the removal or the purported removal of the Buni-led caretaker committee could not stand. And then I am sure the president, who is in London, must have been advised adequately. And that was why, apart from the statement issued by one of his spokespersons last week, he personally signed a letter yesterday to the chairman of the APC governors, Governor Atiku Bagudu. He copied the acting chairman of the party, Governor Sani Bello. He also copied the DSS and then the Inspector General of Police, telling them that the status quo must be maintained, and then Buni should be allowed to conduct the convention. And you know, they're supposed to hold NEC, that is National Executive Team meeting today, but the caretaker committee, you know, said there was no need to hold it because that NEC, assuming it holds today, that is where they will ratify the removal of the caretaker committee and then to stamp the authority of Governor Sani Bello to carry on with the convention. But there will be no NEC today. But as a political reporter, I know the fight is not over. Yes, of course.
So what happens to Governor Bello now? We've not heard anything from him.
No, you see, that man, he was really careful. Remember, that day when the coup was staged at, yes, yes, there was coup at the APC. Because, you know, he went there, of course, number one, he parked his car where Buni, used to park his car. And then when he entered the meeting room, he sat
Where
Buni. So what does that mean? It was really a palace coup. But he was really careful. Because when reporters asked him, have you completely taken over? He said, I am acting.
He's in acting capacity.
Yes, I think you also, have some advisors who told him to be smart in the approach, and he was really smart. And we learned that he was also in talks with Buni while Buni was in Dubai. This may not be
Very
true.
interesting.
You understand? And then beyond that, he has been a member of the committee. Yes, and from our findings, there were 3 governors. One of the governors resigned, so it remained Buni, him, and some members. So naturally, if Buni was absent, he should act. But what we've seen before now was whenever Buni was not around, the national secretary, act and then issued a statement and all that. But this time around, Sani Bello, with the active support of the Eurofais, he took charge. But as the wise man said, the fight is not really over. Yes, now they just have no option but to put their acts together to do the convention. But maybe the fight will resume
After the convention.
yes, after the convention. But I know if the caretaker, delivers the convention, any other thing will be secondary.
The drama of politics in Nigeria. Very interesting.
All right, I think with this, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where There are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make an impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital. And Hamza Idris is still here with us, talking to us about some of the stories that are making headway on our papers this morning. There's a very disturbing story on the Punch newspaper, the one about soldier beats Ondo's 69-year-old artisan to death over 7,000 naira.
It's very sad. If you check other papers, there are similar stories. Look at the two soldiers in Maiduguri that connived with some civilians to rob. So there is no culture now in Nigeria, because I always say this, when we were young, sometimes for air you will not even see the military, you will not see soldiers on the street. But now they are everywhere. If you ask him, he will blame his superiors that they have not been giving him his allowance. But that shouldn't be the reason, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really a systemic problem that our security operatives, they now mingle freely with civilians and they argue. You see soldiers, policemen and others brutalizing motorists over 100 naira. You know, pointing guns at them over 100 naira, and then sometimes even killing them. Now this is an all artisan because of 7,000. Look at what happened. And the story, you know, only got there because we have this citizens journalism. Yes, and that is why. If not for the citizen journalism,
you don't get to hear such.
Nigeria will have been free for all. Yes, because some citizens now, they don't feel like giving the due respect to the custodians. Who are the custodians? I mean the security operatives. So it's such a bad development, and then there is the need for, honestly, serious reorientation of our security operatives. And then while we reorient them, we should also take care of them, because they put their lives on the line to protect the larger society. And then measures should be taken. Anybody who, maltreat the weak should be made to pay a big price for that.
Okay, now let's talk about, fee forms. Yes, for PDP, you know, there's a story about it saying that it's pegged at, is it 42 million naira?
Yes, if you want to be president, you pay that, and you will see many people. You see, the major problem in the PDP, because their meeting yesterday was also deadlocked, because they've been talking about zoning. The South believes that the presidential seat should be ceded to them, but you can see it's like you have more candidates in the north compared to the south. I don't know how and why southern candidates are not forthcoming.
Is that why some people are against the zoning?
Yes. Many people in the PDP, they are against the zoning because like Chief Raymond Dopesi, he's chieftain, he's from the south, but he believes that the formula should be left open, that anybody who wants to vie for the presidency and any other position, instead of sharing the key seats, like saying the South-West should produce the president, or Southeast or South-South, they should leave it open. The same for the seat of the Senate President, Speaker, and others. So this 40 million, I'm sure that is where your interest is. For the politicians, it's nothing. Yes, for the politicians, 40, even last season, they paid something around that.
Okay.
So I can assure you that if they leave the space open, no fewer than 10 people will pay this 40 million to pick the form for the presidency. But their dilemma is which of the zones should produce the president. And they are being smart. You can see they are deliberately foot dragging because they want to see where the ruling party will take its presidential ticket. And whichever area the ruling party take its presidential ticket, the likelihood is that the PDP will go the opposite direction. But some people believe that the two parties will most likely leave their presidential ticket in the north, maybe for some reason that's not today.
There's this very funny caption on the Guardian newspaper. Tinubu is saying, despite backstabbing, God will see me through.
He is one of the aspirants who, started the consultations. They don't want us to say campaign because yes, INEC has not lifted the ban on campaign. But you can see Tinubu is a smart politician with what he did, because first, after meeting some people silently, he now went to the villa, met with the president and said, I want to succeed you. I want to step into your shoe without stepping on it. So he told the president, we don't know what the president told him, but when he came out, he said he was there to consult. And from there, he started visiting prominent people and prominent traditional rulers. From there, he now moved to the National Assembly. You can see House of Reps caucus, the APC caucus yesterday, they endorsed him. They said, you are our candidate, meaning any other person that will come up will have to battle. But when he went to the Senate, they were smart enough, maybe because of age and wisdom. I don't know, I'm sorry to members of the House of Reps. They said, we wish you well, which is a neutral endorsement of sort. Yeah, meaning if you get it, fine. If you didn't get it, we didn't give any commitment. But above all, Tinubu told them that he is well prepared for the job, and he said he has supported the aspiration of many people. And of course, nobody will take that away from him. He was partly instrumental to the emergence of President Buhari, because the president tried 3 times, and he has, of course, nobody can beat Buhari in the north. That 12 million votes, have been there for him over time, but he was unable to break the gills until he crossed the bridge. He went to the other side of the country, where they went into an arrangement. So there is this claim that there was silent arrangement between him and President Buhari that he will support him, and then when Buhari completes his 8 years, he will support him. We don't have evidence. We have pushed, and we interviewed many people who could not actually present documented evidence, but they said in politics, obviously, if I say I will support you, I will also give you some conditions. And they believe that that condition from the side of Tinubu was for him to be supported. But only time will tell, and in the next couple of months, they will definitely hold their convention. But I feel other contenders must have to work very hard. You can see among the ministers of the president, the body language of some of them, allude to the fact that they would like to vie for the presidency. But many of them are waiting for the body language of the president, because they believe if the president said, this is my candidate, he will have an upper hand. But for Tinubu, he starts his game early enough.
You know, talking about contenders, just yesterday, I saw a car with music blasting, and there was Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's, picture. I was like, oh, we're already seeing that with loud music, within the city.
Even way before, there were talks about him, coming out. I think abroad, there was a poster of him and Zulum.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
President and
Yes.
Vice President.
You know our story of Monday. We that story landed us in trouble in court because some people are not just happy with us, and we have seen the handwriting everywhere. We spoke with people, and you see, just look at it. Will the vice president, even if he didn't say anything, look at what is happening. The campaign outside Nigeria, the campaign here, groups, because we hosted some prominent people here. They came, they said they are here to solicit for support. Of course, as a media house, we welcome every other person. But when they came, personally, I said, look, have you spoken to the vice president before you start this? They said, no, he's not aware. We didn't tell. They are being clever by half. Yes, and then, but if you look at the configuration of Nigerian political environment, it is very unlikely for people to continue doing this without the tacit approval of the vice president, maybe his body language. Yes, but from our findings, he also hinted the president, and rightly, he should do that. Yes, because if you come this far with your principal, 8 years, and then even during his last birthday, look at the words the president used. He eulogized him, a loyal deputy, capable and all that. So, but then those close to him, yesterday I sent 2 days ago, I sent an invitation to one of his people. I said he should come and feature on our Politics Today program. He didn't respond. It was yesterday I saw the response. He said, after the story you did on Monday, you want us to come and feature. But I know they will come because they are really interested, They are really interested in the presidency. But we will continue watching them doing the cat and mouse game. But as far as we are concerned, we will continue to dig and we'll continue to report. Yes, we know that there are some ministers who also, there are some ministers who are really not sleeping. Yes, they are desperate to get the ticket, but they don't want us to say it. And they want us to support them nocturnally. Yeah.
All right, I think with that, we'll take a quick breather and, just take a few reports, and we'll be back in a bit.
counsel of wise men is anything to go by. You see some advice. If you want to go fast, do it alone. But if you want to get there, get success, and go there, definitely go with a team. I'm asking for that teammanship here today to get me over the hump of nomination process. And from that hump to get me to the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You all, you remind me of the journey so far. That brings back again my memory of the first national anthem of this country. What is that? The first stanza. It says, though tribes, tongues are diverse, but in brotherhood we stand. That is why the symbol of our party is broom. To create prosperity, cleanse our society of promises of essential commodity. When we have the best brains, the energy to deliver Nigeria of our tomorrow today, you are in charge. The democratic tree that you are cultivating will bring the fruit for the welfare of the people. Mr. President of the Senate, I still congratulate you. Budget passing, the adjustment, the timeliness of raising Nigeria hope. The rest that remains is about a change of leadership that I mentioned to Mr. President and my ambition. And I told him, my ambition is not blind to the extent that I will step on his toes. I just want to step into his shoe and not on his toes. Nigeria will remain united in my period. And we will use that unity, the symbol of our party, stay as one to cleanse of Nigeria of unrealizable potential. It's taking too long. The rest of the world is in a hurry. And we have the capacity, the ability, the knowledge, the human resources and material resources to produce things that other countries will buy from us. Today, why are we flying our gas? When we could have invested long term to compete with Russia in Europe, we can still do it, my dear brothers and sisters. If I continue to talk about the emotional thing that is affecting us in the country, I will take too much of your time.
I believe that at the end of the day, Your Excellency will all the time continue to support our party. Recently, we have had difficulty because of misunderstanding between some of our members, and the party has been thrown into a temporary confusion. But thank God, it is over now. It is very clear that our party is back on track, that at the end of the day, in the next 2 weeks or so, our national convention will hold, and a new set of leaders will emerge, who will take us to the destination of victory by the grace of God in 2023. And Your Excellency, once again, all of us wish you well, wish you the best of luck, wish you success in this. And in the affair of fighting for APC to continue to be the ruling party in Nigeria, justifiably so, Your Excellency, we are with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. On that note, we have come to the end of this session. At this point,
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, so we just saw that report, you know, and we still have our reviewer in the studio. We'd just like him to say one or two things about the report before we wrap up.
Which of the reports?
This report on Tinubu.
Yes, very interesting. You know, we said it earlier that smart enough, he started early. Yes, but you can see when he visited the two houses, the responses appeared different. In the House of Representatives, led by Femi, they endorsed him. That is the APC caucus. They endorsed him, and rightly, the leadership very close to him, and they eulogized him. They said he has paid his dues, and it's time for the kingmaker to become king. And but when he went to the senators, they also listened to him carefully. But the Senate President, cunningly, you know, while responding, said, yes, we'll continue to support our ruling party. Meaning any other person who comes will most likely receive similar response. And then he said they wish the Aswaju well. I think other contenders must have to work harder to, you know, catch up with the speed at which he is carrying on with his consultations. Because as I said earlier, he started very, very early, and he has gone far. He has gone, he has received endorsement in many places, and he is a rugged fighter. Meaning any other contender must have to work hard to maybe get closer ahead of the national convention, and then ultimately the party primaries, where they will decide on who will fly their flag.
You know, from the look of things and from the reactions of people, you know, within the city, it seems like they're looking forward to seeing the Oshibajo Zulum pairing. A lot of people are saying they're going to make quite a great pair.
That is it. We heard of that. Somebody called me the other day and said, look, editor, have you seen what happened in Borno in the last 2 weeks? This was after President Buhari visited, you know. When Buhari visited, just 2 weeks after, the vice president was also there. So Zulum, by virtue of maybe the way he's performing in Maiduguri, is now the well-sorted bride. Even you know that
Nigerians.
some people in PDP, they also say that the presidential candidate of PDP should pick Zulum as the...
Very interesting.
I don't know, he's a lucky person. Yes, he's doing well, I think. And so you can see success has many fathers. It is only failure that is an orphan.
Right.
Meaning it's a message to politicians and to all of us that we should do well. I keep asking where the governor, you know, was getting his money to do so many things. You know, almost every day you see him giving money to people. I mean, rightly, you know, people who need the money, visiting villages, building houses, building bridges, building roads, you know, paying school fees, building school, and all that. He is doing very well. He's one of the, I think, the pride of democracy, let me put it simply. But this is what we need. And in fact, many governors are doing well. Yes, even the El-Rufai who had a bruises, during the fight with Buni, he's also doing very well in his state. And rightly, of course, I think it is the insecurity that dwarf the performance of some governors. And I hope that between now and 2023, from the national level to the state level, the president and the governors should do something to address the precarious security situation, so that by the time they leave, we will begin to see the achievements they recorded. Because in fairness, even at the national level, they have done a lot in terms of infrastructure, because they have built many roads, the railway, and many other things. But in government, no room for excuses. If you miss one, especially the security, that is where they are yet to get it right. And I hope that they will get it right before they leave.
Okay, now, in a bid to tackle insecurity and also mostly ritual killings, by the way, now the federal government are saying they want TikTok to suspend accounts of Nigerians promoting rituals and fake news. Now, do we see, the likelihood of TikTok getting banned if, it doesn't do what the federal government does, it just says, just like Twitter?
We hope they should do that. Because honestly, TikTok, most of the messages are not really things that will foster unity and peaceful coexistence. And young people now, they are glued to their phones and they learn terrible things. It would not be good to ban it. It would not be good to ban it, but to seriously censor it. Yes, if there will be good messages on how to become, a carpenter in 3 days or in 3 months. Yeah. How to become self-reliant in 1 month. These are the kind of messages that we should be seeing from some of these platforms. And government, whether we like it or not, government has a serious role to play in protecting the society. Yes, talking to platforms like TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and all that, it's not out of place if you want to get it right. Because where your freedom stops, that is where the freedom of another person starts. Yes. So government has a role to play without prejudice to the concept of freedom of expression.
Okay. Now, how about NANS giving the federal government an ASU 2 weeks to end strike?
We are tired. We are tired.
The students are tired as well.
Every Nigerian is tired, and strike has never solved any problem. Yes, and it appears government has shut its ears, to this issue. It's not even a matter of priority. So I believe universities and then policy makers have a role to play in looking at another option to resolving the protracted problems afflicting our universities. You see, why not we learn from what is happening in other climes? Do you see universities going on strike, even in some neighboring African countries? Why? So government should stop playing the ostrich, because whenever they go to the meeting table, they don't really address the root causes of some of these problems. ASU has about 8 demands, which government in all intent will not be able to solve them. So if you cannot solve them, why not change the method? As far as I'm concerned, the policy guiding regulation of universities should be changed. I don't want to preempt it. We're actually working on a serious report on some of these issues, which we will come up with, and I strongly believe that the report will most likely change the thinking of all the stakeholders. But we have to be fair to our students, because they are at the receiving end. Most of the policy makers, they are rounding up their lifespan, let me put it this way, as far as maybe giving their own part to national development. It is the millions of students who are roaming the streets that are suffering. Students that are supposed to graduate maybe at the age of 20, 21, 22, you see them graduating when they are 30. And then this has entered into the lifespan of, their working life. And it's not fair. So there is the need for government, policy makers, and then even the teachers to think out of the box, because it appears strike is not and would not be the final solution to the problem.
Okay. Now there's this story on Daily Trust on page 16 on how Lagos bishop drugged and defiled a daughter. A really sad one there.
I really wanted us to discuss this since the beginning of the program. You can see clerics hiding under the toga of religion, and beyond, desecrating the altar. This man has descended so low to drug his own daughter, his biological daughter. Yes, from the story, we learned that he started this since 2019.
Wow.
Yes, that he invited the young girl to his room. He asked her to do certain things, and he gave her some drugs. Later, he also gave her blood tonic, according to her. And then he said she should sleep on his, she should go to his bed, which she did. Then later, she found him defiling her. And not only her, there was also a young girl, the daughter of one of the members of his so-called church, because the church was within a house. They said it's just a room. So he just claimed to be a cleric, but the truth is that the man is a devil. Last week we reported similar story, and this is a call for action. Yes, I know that it is not wrong to exercise some control on who is a cleric, who should also preside over religious activities. And I'm talking about both the Christian faith and the Muslim faith. Governors, local government chairmen, and then at the national level, there is the need to really regulate some of these things. I know you have seen severally where some hardened criminals, overnight they will tell you that they are clerics, right? And then they will open shops, because they are shops.
Yeah, definitely.
They will open shops and then said they have received, revelation, yes, to start preaching. And then they will start, even giving predictions that tomorrow it is going to rain and all that. And before you know, they extend their excesses to even their children. It's really sad. When I was going through the story yesterday, I was saddened. His own daughter. His own daughter. Then, is this a man? Is he human? I think he should be an animal. Yes, and then the law should take its course.
But really, I'm really keen. How can one, protect, for instance, how can a mother protect her child from these kind of circumstances in the first place? When the person who is supposed to be the protector is
become
now
the aggressor.
Yeah, it's really very...
And that is it. In fact, we have descended so low in Nigeria, because this story is just one of thousands that happened on that day. Because almost every other day, if you open the pages of newspapers, if you listen to radio stations, you see some of these things that they are just incomprehensible. You don't just understand. You begin to ask, what is really wrong? And some people, they do this not for pleasure. Probably he was misled by one spiritualist that for your church, so-called church, to become as big as maybe this building, you have to sleep with your daughter.
My goodness.
Yes. Some will tell them to go and sleep with their mothers. Some will say you have to go and remove the head of your mother. There are some people who kill their mothers simply because they want to be famous. So it's really bad, and we are uncultured. Let me put it this way.
I'm speechless, you know.
And it's really painful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of Newspaper Review. Thank you so much, General Editor, Daily Trust.
I messed up his title earlier. I'm so sorry for that.
Thank you so much for...
After all, I'm a reporter.
No.
A reporter is a reporter. Wherever you are, we look forward to going back to normal reporting.
All right, with that, when we come back after the break, it'll be time for our first discussion. Please stay with us.
In the spirit of the Constitution, our Constitution said that nobody should be discriminated against. You see, if you make it a motion and the House have to compare that we should make people with first class get automatic job. Mr. Speaker, you are in Nigeria. That will be crazy for first class. And it will have been much better that we identify in which area of this first class are we talking about. Is it in the area of technology? Or is this that if I read Hausa, I become first class, I should just be given an automatic employment? I agree that somebody who has a first class must be one of the best brains within the place.
So how is the existing policy, if it's the same thing, how is the existing policy not pushing corruption, but this one is?
No, what I'm saying is that...
Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Do you want me to repeat it? The ayes have it.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, he phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think, that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make any impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the camping of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
All right, welcome back. On our first discussion today, we'll be talking inflation. The Consumer Price Index, which measures the rate of increase in the price of goods and services, rose to 15.70% in February 2022 amid soaring fuel prices and scarcity. Now, with the development, it means that the headline inflation rate slowed down in February when compared to the same month in the previous year. The rate is 1.63 percentage points lower compared to the rate recorded in February 2021. That's about 17.33%. Now, let's get perspectives, from our guests today. And we have joining us in the studio an economist, Dr. Tefa Abraham. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak once again.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. Regards. Yeah.
It seems like this fuel crisis that we're facing presently has put us in quite of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, well, energy is an input to a lot of production systems, even consumption. And you need consumption for production to be sustained. Without consumption, there will be no production. Without production, there will be no employment. Without employment, income will be low. If income is low, there will be poverty and the economic recession will just take place. So energy being an input to consumption and production process, being scarce at this point means, as a result of supply shortage, simply means that transportation costs will go up. And once transportation cost goes up, even the person supplying newspapers to stations, the person selling food at junctions, the people who are operating POS, selling at every spot, they will all have an increment in their own prices as a result of the increase in transportation cost. Then for major production units, they need diesel and fuel to run their systems, especially now that the shortage in PMS is backed up by a decline in electricity supply. So you can see that energy cost generally has gone up, and you have a lot of distortions in terms of supplies affecting prices. So the inflation report that was released by the National Bureau of Statistics showed that inflation went up to 15.57% from 15.56% in January. So you can see that inflation that maintains an upward rise. But already, we've always been arguing and maintaining that a double-digit inflation will always be problematic for Nigeria. So even if it has gone down to 15.5%, that double-digit figure of inflation still remains a huge cost because interest rates has to be higher than that 15% inflation rate. And by the time you add the cost of borrowing, it affects how businesses operate in general. So it's just a very painful moment that despite all the policy somersaults from monetary policy, fiscal policy, income redistribution policy, we have increase in cost factors that is making cost of living very high, and they're making most especially people's income not to have any sense in the open market.
Yeah. Okay, now we've heard a lot about, inflation, the what do you call it, inflation making a lot of businesses, shut down and everything. But is there a possibility that, inflation actually increases productivity?
Okay, the positive side of inflation, and that's a good question, because most times when we talk about inflation, we look at it like just on the negative side. What inflation does is that it serves as a signal for businesses. So inflation in any sector, for example, the rise in energy costs right now that is making the black market guys to sell and cash out simply means that there is a shortage in supply of energy. So anybody that can go into that business to join the supply side to contribute to the market will definitely be making money and creating businesses. So inflation signals businesses. For example, if you look at the data released by the NBS, inflation is higher in the urban areas than the rural areas. But even for the rural areas, it's still double digit. So what that means is that every form of production activity that takes place in the rural area, farming, bringing of goods from rural area to the market, all those places have business opportunities. That is the immediate implication. Then also, if you look at it in terms of states, Kogi State has the highest level of inflation. What that means is that there are a lot of supply gaps in Kogi State that small businesses can be able to provide or cover when they join. So inflation signals access to business opportunities. But the only reason why economically we focus a lot on the negative side of inflation is because it erodes the value of money. The Naira, in our own case as Nigerians, is a store of value. And inflation is a thief in the night on that money that you saved. You want to save 100 Naira on Monday morning and wake up on Friday morning, still 100 Naira. But inflation makes your 100 Naira by Friday go down. For example, our 15.7% inflation rate simply means 100 Naira can do what is equal to maybe 87 Naira right now. Okay. So the value of money is being eroded by inflation. So for central bank, trying to keep inflation single digit and stable, even not single digit, but stable over time, will guarantee some form of return on investment. You want to be sure that when you inject $100 into an economy or 100 Naira, that same value goes into the system and creates a profit that is worth it. And that's why one good way that will measure inflation as economists is using this McDonald's burger. That McDonald's burger should sell the same price worldwide. That's how the McDonald's guys factored it. Right. So when you notice that McDonald's is not selling in your country with the same price it should be selling in the US, then it shows that that country's inflation is not doing too well. So you could currently the double-digit inflation has signals for investment, but in terms of macroeconomic aggregates, its effect on income, wages, and exchange rate, it's a very terrible situation right now.
Okay, so would you say if we are to set, a benchmark interest rate, will this in any way help us stabilize, the inflation status we're going through?
The long-term interest rate is the monetary policy rate. That's the one that the central bank meets periodically to try to fix the monetary policy rate when they set, and they also set a corridor around it, hoping that it will not go below or above a certain corridor. Usually they say it shouldn't go above 100 basis points. Right. And what that 100 basis point means is that it shouldn't go above 1% increase or decrease. And they also set a cash reserve ratio limit, and then also other commercial banking parameters that will help the financial system stay stable. So what happens is that inflation being 15.7% means that our monetary policy rate will likely remain high the way it is right now, because inflation plus interest rate is what gives you the cost of borrowing, the cost of loanable funds, because every business person wants to cover that cost of inflation. Even for Taj Bank, for Jaiz Bank, for the Islamic banking model, dealing with inflation is a very terrible situation, because Islamic banking model does not want to charge interest rate. So they want to loan you money, you go to do your business, from the profit you make, then you share in it based on a very fair humanitarian value, norms, respecting perspective. But when you are facing inflation from the money you've gotten from an Islamic banking model, how do you even make the profit to be shared with the bank? Then when you make loss, The bank still shares the loss with you. That's a good thing about the Islamic banking model. But it means that you will have a longer period to repay back your loan, which in the long run is even terrible or difficult for the bank to maintain continuous its investment in the Nigerian economy. So generally, addressing inflation is good for any banking model, whether Islamic or non-Islamic, whether business or non-business, whether it is personal or non-personal. Inflation is just a terrible ill. It makes it makes everything unpredictable. The price, school fees, cost of production, everything. The price of everything just goes up, in an inflationary scenario.
Now, talking about, government helping to curtail, inflation, is it possible for government to actually fix prices or even control price change?
Okay, great. In that area, what government can do is to go after marketers, wholesalers, to ensure that they don't take advantage of the situation. For instance, somebody who bought fuel, a commercial transport operator who bought fuel before the prices went up, will still be charging as if he bought from black market. So these are some of the things that people do to people. These are man's inhumanity to man. It's unfair to do that. Even somebody who sells gold, jewelries, and this person stocked last month, last 2 years, will still be charging using new prices.
Right.
So but at the micro level, it's for consumers to always report people like that to Consumer Protection Unit, Consumer Protection Commission, for being taken advantage of. Then at the macro level, the federal government can maybe put in place a mechanism like a price invigilation process to ensure that producers or wholesalers don't take advantage of the system. And that is why it's important for everything to remain, for every sector to be organized. If you go to the very big shopping malls, it's not possible that that happens because their own prices are being checked. They will give discounts and promos and things like that. But in areas whereby, in markets that are totally offline, that are not regulated, that you cannot supervise, it will be difficult to do that. But that is one thing that government can do to ensure that wholesalers or middlemen don't take advantage of the ultimate consumer.
Okay, this is, to a layman now. There are reports that amid the Russia-Ukraine war, fuel prices are expected to rise further. When you talk to people about the Russia-Ukraine war and how it affects us here, some people do not really understand how that affects us down here. So could you just talk to us about that?
Okay, Russia is one of the biggest economies of the world in terms of size and influence over the global economy. Nigeria's export is crude oil. Crude oil is oil that is not refined. It is just raw oil that we sell to the rest of the world. We export crude oil and import refined oil. Russia is one of those countries that we get those refined oil from. Russia is one of the countries that has a major supply of global gas and fuel energy. So when the war in Russia and Ukraine is going on, it means that our access to inflow of refined oil, which we need, which is the one that we get PMS from, that supply will be distorted. There are other places we can get from, no doubt, but Russia is one of the biggest in that space. That's one. Then secondly, most of our export is crude oil. But with Russia and Ukraine, we have agricultural exports. Very unique agricultural exports that will help us grow our non-oil revenue. So whether you are for Russia or Ukraine, for Nigeria, doesn't even matter. The war affects us both ways. Our best position is hoping that the war just ends right now. Because our trade in Ukraine is being affected. We have trade partnership with Ukraine. In fact, we have embassy in Ukraine. We have embassy in Russia. Meaning that we have trade relations, international diplomatic relationship with these two countries. And what makes Ukraine and Russia extremely important is that our non-oil export goes to these countries. And we have a lot of agricultural import from them as well. Things that are very critical in producing oat milk, cereals. I don't want to mention specific product, but those kind of agricultural products that are so unique. You'll be very amazed to know that even our soybeans, refined sesame seed goes to these countries. In a country where we are talking about growing the size of non-oil export, a war in Russia, the Russia-Ukraine crisis is bad for the Nigerian economy. It will certainly lead to shortage in agricultural inputs that we use for our own manufacturing process here in Nigeria, thereby leading to the increase in the food prices of all this agriculturally manufactured food. In fact, the Russian-Ukraine crisis will even affect the price of food that we use in feeding children 0 to 5, because most of those type of food that children at that age, babies consume, comes from these countries. Not that it comes from them 100%, but our trade relations with them, those are the kind of areas that it affects. If our trade with U.S., for instance, is majorly on crude. So when U.S. stopped buying our crude oil during the COVID-19 lockdown, we simply looked for India, and India became we just changed the market. But Russia, Ukraine, it's not easy to make that switch very fast because it has to do with non-oil exports. So this is the challenge where it's affecting us. So the effect for the people out there, for you and I out there, is that we'll feel it immediately in terms of delay in PMS arriving at filling stations. So we stay long at queues. Your job may even get affected. For those running transportation companies, their profit per day will reduce. For those going to places that are likely to arrive late, and then for those who are even earning, transportation costs will wipe off what they are earning. So these are the channels in which it affects. Then for those who have children 0 to 5, who still depend on all those kind of children food without mentioning names, they will notice that the price will increase as well. And for all those who Nexim Bank, Export Central Bank project has been supporting to grow their export value chain for non-oil commodities, they will notice a delay or a distortion in their business model to increase foreign earnings from agricultural output. This is the channel of impact. Yeah.
All right, well, in case you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV, and we're discussing inflation with Dr. Tefa Abraham. We'll be back after this break.
Based on International Mechanized Trade Statistics Manual, the use of investors' exporters window for exchange rate and updated data sales for MBS data sources were adopted as a methodology. Accordingly, during the fourth quarter of 2021, total trade stood at 11,707,000,000 with export trade value of 5,766,000,000 and import trade value of 5,940,000,000, which recorded a negative trade balance of 173.96 billion naira.
The report said that Nigeria's foreign trade grew 58% to 39.8 trillion naira in 2021 from 25.2 trillion naira the previous year. According to the report, Nigeria's export trade valued at 5.766 trillion naira is mainly dominated by crude oil.
In terms of export, ladies and gentlemen, the Nigerian export trade was mainly dominated by crude oil, which amounted to 426 billion naira, representing 74.04% of the total export during the fourth quarter of 2021. This was followed by natural gas, liquefied with 573.85 billion naira, representing 9.95%, floating of submersible drilling platforms with 265.33 billion naira.
Harry also gave figures on Nigeria's main imports.
Urea, whether or not in aqueous solution, with 208.05 billion naira, representing 3.61%. On the other hand, major products imported were motor spirit, value at 1,443.91 billion, representing 24.31%. followed by crude weight value at 397.19 billion.
The report also brings to light Nigeria's major export partners.
In exports during the fourth quarter of 2021, were India with 874.86 billion naira, Spain with 789.23 billion naira, France with 485.35 billion naira, the Netherlands with 423.85 billion naira, and Indonesia with 288.10 billion naira.
Nigeria's top import trading partners during the period under review were China with 1.65 trillion naira, Belgium with 613.28 billion naira, India with 430.38 billion naira, the Netherlands with 416.52 billion, and the United States of America with 340.36 billion naira. Chamun Dabeng, Trust TV News.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back. Still talking inflation with Dr. Tefa Abraham, an economist. And I actually want to know, I have this question, how much do you think, as an economist, how much do you think inflation would actually increase this year? And for this one that we're actually facing, do you see an end to it?
Inflation is likely to stay double-digit the whole of the year because already we have a year that has a government spend of 17.126 trillion, higher than last year. And don't forget, there was a supplementary budget that the president has submitted to the National Assembly requesting for 2.5 trillion extra for fuel subsidy. And then it's a year where election campaigns will start. People start buying election forms and campaigns will start. All this will increase election spending in the Nigerian economy. There's also a period whereby, like I said earlier, there's inflation already, so spending is likely to continue. Our difficulty as a country to get revenue to fund our project means borrowing is also likely to continue. So generally speaking, it's expansionary fiscal spending that we're seeing. But the only thing is that central bank policy can continue to remain tight to help curtail the rise in money in circulation. But there's a limit to which central bank policy can also achieve. Because in a period where there's poverty, where there's unemployment, where there's high cost of living, central bank using tight monetary policy will be counterproductive. It will be counter-compensatory or complementary to the fiscal and income policy effort. So in summary, inflation is likely to remain double-digit for the whole of 2022. So what is important is for Nigerian business and entrepreneurs to begin to create substitute for anything that we import. The hand wash we import, if you can create substitute for it, for instance, it would be very nice. But one thing also, we also hope that Dangote refinery will run before the end of this year so that it can reduce the import dependency we have for refined PMS, because these are some of the areas that we have supply shortage. And energy, in terms of crude oil, kerosene, gas, diesel, they are so connected. It's just like a basket of commodity. They are like brother, sister, cousin kind of space. So an increase in the price of one, the other one will follow, the other one will follow, and everything just goes alike. So until we have a major input from the Nigerian economy side to supply or cover the gap of import dependency that we have on PMS, that situation is not likely to go down anytime. Because it will be interesting to know that the people producing gas, they need fuel to sustain. The person supplying fuel needs electricity to power. The person the person channeling electricity also needs gas. So everything is just connected. And then ultimately, aviation fuel also needs diesel, and the person taking aviation fuel to the airport will go there by fuel. So the whole thing is just connected. Increasing the cost of one component will just lead to this ripple effect on everything. So, but don't forget, we're having this challenge because everything we get from this energy space is import dependent. Our refineries, the two in Port Harcourt, one in Warri, one in Kaduna, all are near zero production capacity. So until we address that domestic supply gap, we are likely to remain exposed to two sources of shocks: a shock in international price of crude oil and a shock in the international supply of the quantity of PMS. So double shock from two ways, price and quantities. It will be a terrible one. It's something that we cannot estimate when the scarcity or the fuel queues will end. One quick solution for the government to do right now, as painful as it is to have a strong stakeholder meeting with all the marketers and everybody in this petroleum, energy, gas sector, so that the government just have to listen to them and see what they can do to make these guys happy and restore equilibrium in the short to medium term, while awaiting Dangote's refinery to cover that gap in the long run, hopefully by the end of the year.
You know, you spoke about, the Dangote refinery coming up and running. But some will say it's really sad that we are waiting for, Dangote refinery to come up. The government has been talking about diversification of the economy, and our refineries are still not working. So in the short term, what do we have? What backup plan should we have, to cushion these kind of effects when they come up?
In the short term, what can we do now, right now? What we have is 2 refineries in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, 1 in Kaduna. And you know why? Do you know how these refineries work? All of them have their own production capacity. The quantity of crude oil, of refined oil they can produce per day. But to produce, they need stock feeds. They call it stock feed. That stock feed is supply of crude oil. Kaduna Refinery, Port Harcourt, Warri, they need supply of crude oil. Crude oil is the input that they convert to PMS. Crude oil is the direct raw material that goes to these refineries. Then they convert it to PMS, convert to kerosene, convert to other derivatives based on the volume of heat that they introduce to the production system. These refineries are not even getting the crude oil they need to refine. So now that we have these refineries there, the hope on Dangote's refinery is that, being a private sector business model, it will be able to have its own unique supply of crude oil, that it may even in the long run use these other ones we have already as production outlets. But again, like your question rightly said, this is something that we are looking at the end of the year towards early next year to achieve. Right now, we have illegal refineries, the one Nigeria have branded illegal refineries. And we also have modular refineries. Modular refineries are refineries that states can even invest in. Edo State, Kaduna State, Benue State, Niger, anybody can invest in modular refinery. So that when Port Harcourt Refinery is dealing with producing 100,000 barrels of crude oil per day, modular refineries will be looking at 3,000, 5,000. Just smaller. Modular means small, smaller amounts. So states can also invest in modular refineries. I think Edo State is currently doing that, so that they can at least help address the little supply gaps of PMS in their states. Then I think the military approach we are using to end illegal refineries should be reconsidered, because illegal refineries, they are producing something. So rather than declaring them illegal, why not find a way to get them to operate within an existing legislative framework or legality and see how much we can get? Because you'll be amazed to know that even the people who bring PMS to us as imported, some even get these supplies from these ones we brand illegal refineries. So in trying to stamp out the underground economy, you are affecting the formal economy. So these are things we can do right now. Invest in modular refineries, find an alternative framework to regulate what happens in the illegal refinery space. What is illegal, no doubt. It hurts the Nigerian economy. But we are saying that instead of just stamping them out, getting their product and wasting it, find a way to arrest them, halt their production, and force their production to feed into the formal market to address this shortage we have in supply in PMS. So these are things we can do in the immediate, like today, this week kind of action. Then one other big news we should be hearing this week or next week is stakeholder meeting between National Assembly, Petroleum, Pengasset, all of them, all those marketers, and the executive arm of government towards what can be done to also avoid a shutdown in the aviation sector and also reduce the effect on the cost of businesses that are running and depend solely on fuel to power their systems, because already this period of fuel shortage is also being accompanied by distortions in the supply of electricity. So you can see it's like a double punch hit on businesses in terms of energy side. And very sooner than later, don't forget, even primary schools, secondary schools run on energy, diesel, fuel system. As we're resuming very soon, when children go on holidays, you might be hearing increase in school fees. And don't forget, this is not being accompanied by increase in salaries. Rather, inflation is even eroding the real effect. It's also eroding the real value of wages. So it's a really terrible situation right now. It just needs urgent actions to be implemented at the moment.
We really do hope we come out of this chaos, because Nigerians are really going through a lot.
It's not easy, I must tell you. It's not easy.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program, Dr. Tefa Abraham. He's an economist, and we hope to have you next time.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Have a wonderful day ahead.
And I'm Zainab Bala. Have a good day.